Welcome to the Birth Launch Podcast, an empowering space for expecting and new parents to hear candid conversations with experts and learn how to craft your ideal birth. We will tackle the scary and weird questions that come up along the way and provide answers that are driven by science and evidence-based recommendations. I'm going to show you how to redefine parenthood and choose what's best aligned for you and your goals. With 10 years of experience in family education and a master's degree in human development and family studies, I'm ready to help you navigate pregnancy and explore your birth options to free yourself of fear surrounding childbirth. My goal is to help you have an informed and confident labor experience, plus an empowered and joyous postpartum. Sterling, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about this conversation today because, I think it's a conversation that I don't think a lot of people know about it, first of all. And then I think when you do know about it, it doesn't get a lot of light. And so not a lot of people think about it, or you learn about it too late. So before we dive into the donor milk conversation, tell us who we're talking to today. Like, who's behind the microphone?
Okay, well, hi, everybody. My name is Sterling Grey-Simmons. I am a certified breastfeeding specialist and also a full spectrum doula. And I am in the process of getting everything submitted to become a lactation consultant as well. So hopefully I'll have those letters to throw behind my name as well here soon. I'm the owner of Loyal Lactation. I have been supporting mamas and families with reaching their breastfeeding goals and providing them breastfeeding education since 2016.
Nice. I started my business in 2016 too. I feel like doing the Hunger Games,
Yeah.
like, woo,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
2016 business is like, we made it through the pandemic. We're on the other side. Like,
on the other side of it.
We did it. Okay. Cool. Sterling, I'm so excited for this conversation. So I think donor milk is pretty self-explanatory. It's breast milk that someone has donated to you, right? But I think the question for a lot of people is, why would I choose donor milk? What situations would, call for a family to need or explore the option of donated milk to them?
That's a great question. So there are a lot of instances where donor milk might be a great choice. So obviously a lot of people are aware of donor milk in a hospital situation. So if you have a premature baby, obviously they are going to recommend that your baby has breast milk, which is going to be donor breast milk if mom is unable to express to prevent certain health issues that can be associated with providing formula to babies that are not able to process formula. So they typically are okay with donor milk as it is in a hospital setting. But there are other instances where I've had a client whose baby had a pretty severe tongue tie and we were unable to get it clipped. There was a little bit of a time between the provider she wanted to use and where we were at that moment in time. So the fact that he was not able to latch onto her breast effectively and help her move the milk so that she could make milk. Her body was kind of slow. She also had a C-section. So, there was a lot of factors that were kind of contributing to her low milk supply. And she was able to get in contact with one of my clients who could fill her freezer in 3 days. And she was able to supply her with donor milk so that she could supplement with breast milk while she was still pumping and trying to make her supply, pick up in between that time before they had the frendectomy. There's also those instances where you have people who just are unable to produce the amount of breast milk that they need or that they are able to exclusively breastfeed. I've also had clients who are adoptive families who want to give their baby breast milk. Let's say I had a baby before and I breastfed all of my other children and I want to make sure that my adoptive child has the same experience. Or I even had a dad whose wife unfortunately passed away in childbirth and they had done all the breastfeeding classes and breastfeeding was very important to her. And in her memory, he made sure that he was able to connect with a donor to make sure that their baby had exclusive breast milk the whole time that they were breastfeeding or the whole time they were drinking milk. So there are a lot of circumstances where it can be very beneficial, but it's just like you said, one of those things that a lot of people don't really consider.
It's a tool in your toolbox, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that you did a really great job right there illustrating that it can be a temporary stepping stone to help you get to your goals, or it can be a permanent solution for your family. So you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned about kind of birth trauma, birth experience, and how
Mm-hmm.
that may impact your milk supply. Can we
Correct.
dive into that? I know that's a
Yeah.
little bit of a right turn here, but I think people should know the more interventions you have, if there's any birth trauma, if you do need a surgery, this is going to impact your milk supply, which may make you feel inadequate, like you can't breastfeed, like your
Mm-hmm.
body's not working with you, but with the right support, you could actually do that. And donor milk might have a role in keeping your baby on breast milk until you reach your goals.
Agreed wholeheartedly. So I think that C-sections are one of the things that people aren't made aware of until after the fact, that it can negatively affect your breast milk supply. There's a lot of other interventions, but C-sections and IV fluids are probably like the two biggest ones that can contribute to, your success or your failure. But basically, when you have a C-section, your body has a delayed reaction to start producing milk. Oftentimes when the mama has a C-section, especially if it's an emergency C-section, those numbers significantly skyrocket versus a planned C-section because of the stress. But if she has an emergency C-section and now she's thinking, oh my goodness, like for me, a lot of my clients are planning home births. So now all of a sudden you go from having a home birth to now you get to the hospital and they're telling you have to have a C-section, and then you're having all these experiences that aren't the way you thought they were going to be. And then now when you have the C-section, it's 2 hours before you get to hold your baby. That is going to cause your body to react slower to creating the milk. It is very important to get that first hour of breastfeeding in. That golden hour is so important when it comes to just getting an effective latch and getting breastfeeding down pat. So even if you're having a C-section, it's important to talk to your doula or whoever's going to be in your room with you, or be your advocate for yourself, and just let them know, hey, I still want to get this skin to skin. While you're doing whatever it is you're doing, hand me my baby and let me see if I can get them to latch. If there are concerns about, their ability to hold the baby, somebody else can help them, but they can breastfeed immediately after, or sometimes even while they're still in the room, in the OR. But yeah, those interventions can definitely cause issues, like I said, with the delay of onset milk production, basically because the baby did not come down the birth canal. And sometimes your body just doesn't realize that you have had the baby. And also some of the drugs that they give you have been known to prolong certain things. So yeah, C-sections can definitely cause issues with milk production. She also may be in more pain, obviously, because she had major surgery, and she might also be groggy to where now she still doesn't feel confident in her ability to hold baby, to sit up and, be in the best positions and all that type of thing. So all of that definitely plays a role in how she is going to handle breastfeeding.
Explain to us why IV fluids make a difference.
Yeah, so IV fluids, they don't necessarily make a difference for breastfeeding, but what I will tell you is that a lot of people, that especially those who have hospital births, they go in the hospital, and as soon as they're in the hospital, they hook them up to the IV fluids, and they tell mama, oh, you may want to take your ring off because your hands may swell, your feet may swell. Don't be alarmed if you see any swelling. But then what they don't tell you is that some of those fluids transfer to baby as well. So now when you have baby, and the first thing they do is weigh your baby, and now your baby is full of all this fluffy stuff, just like you. And then they're documenting this. And because you're breastfeeding, they're like on you about weight and making sure that you're keeping up with this weight when your baby had X amount of extra fluids. And now you go to the pediatrician a few days later and they're like, oh my gosh, your baby's lost all this weight. You have to supplement immediately, when really all they did was have a good pee and a good poop. And this is what they actually weigh. So I tell my clients to wait on the wait. So we want to wait at least 24 hours before we are weighing the baby so we can have a more accurate time. If the hospital will not allow you to do that, I tell them to go off of their going home weight when they're going to their pediatrician. That way they have a more kind of idea of actually what their baby weighs, and they won't be pressured as quickly to start supplementing, because a lot of them, they don't even give them the full 14 days to get back to birth weight.
And you are allowed to say no to anything, you guys. You're allowed
Anything.
to have that autonomy, right? Just
Yes.
like hearing providers say we don't allow you to do that just irks me
Yeah,
out a
like,
little
yeah.
bit. It really does.
I'm like, you work for me. You can't.
Yeah. Okay, so if we run into these kind of complications, or we run into a space where we think donor milk might be appropriate for us, where do we get it? How do you get donor milk? Is it something your hospital provides? Is it something you need to seek out? How do we get it?
It depends very much from place to place. So for me, I'm in Georgia. I'm about 25 minutes from Atlanta, and we do not have a milk bank. I know people think Atlanta has everything, but we do not have a milk bank. And the closest ones are in Tennessee and Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
And the two that I know for sure, the one in Birmingham, Alabama does not sell milk to individuals. They only get the milk from people who donated it, and then they sell it to hospitals. And that is all they do. So
wait. Pause here. They are having milk donated for free from women.
Yes.
And then they are selling it to hospitals for a profit.
It's like Goodwill. I am giving you something for free, and then you sell it to people who need it. Yes.
Okay, proceed.
So now they will say that they are selling it because they have to pasteurize it, they have to test it, they have to do all these other things, but they do get a profit to sell it to the hospitals. There are other ones who will sell it to, I'm not sure if the one in Tennessee does it, but some milk banks will sell it again to mothers. So yes, they're getting this milk donated to them. Some milk banks will give a mom a certain amount of money. It really just depends on how they're set up, but they do typically sell it back, and it can be anywhere from $1 to $3.33 per ounce if you buy it from a milk bank.
Wow.
So obviously, that is probably not going to be sustainable for most people when you're thinking like, hey, my baby's probably going to drink at least 48 ounces today, and I can't pay $3.33, an ounce for that. So yeah, it's one of those things that a milk bank may not be the perfect way. There are some options. I know in Georgia, they passed a bill recently. I cannot remember the numbers, but it basically provides donor milk for babies who are born extremely low birth weights. And I believe they can get it from the hospitals. And so basically their pediatrician or OB would write them something saying that, hey, my baby was born at, these pounds, this many ounces. I need this donor milk to make sure that, they're good. And I would assume they only get it from the hospitals because, again, we do not have a milk bank. Another version of getting donor milk is the peer-to-peer aspect of it, which is more so what I do. So again, we don't have a milk bank in Georgia. So I have had so many instances where other birth workers or clients are reaching out to me and they're looking for donor milk. So one instance, a midwife who has passed on, unfortunately, she delivered a mom, and mom was hemorrhaging, and she did not have a partner. So the midwife stayed at the house while mom was transported to the hospital, and mom again wanted to breastfeed. And she's like, Sterling, I need you to find somebody come over here so we can, get this baby some breast milk. I ended up calling one of my clients. It was like 9:30 at night. I ended up calling one of my clients. She was like, I don't have a lot of milk pumped, but I can ride with you and I can pump the whole time while I'm on my way. And we can make sure that we give this baby some milk. And we ended up on the phone with mom, and mom was like, do whatever you have to do to get milk into my baby. And baby actually latched on to her and was able to help her to where now she can pump the other side to have more milk to save for later. So that was more so like the peer-to-peer. I also have clients who, like I said, who had the C-section and needed a little bit of support, and I can call and say, hey, I need this amount of milk. And she would be like, sure, get whatever you need to get out of my deep freezer and take it to whoever needs it. So peer-to-peer is a great aspect of it. Obviously, there are people who have concerns or like, well, how do you know what kind of medication this mom is on? And how do you know it's actually breast milk? And, all those types of things. So it really is on kind of a trust system. When you're doing it peer-to-peer, you can obviously do like blood work and things like that if that is something that you want to do. You can also check like Facebook groups where they're specifically for buying, selling, and donating breast milk or receiving donated breast milk. And I also made a post recently about an app called Utterly, where they were showcasing that they have come up with basically like the Google Maps of breastfeeding, looking for donor milk. So you can type your area in and you can find who has milk to buy or for sale or for donation in your area.
Nice. That is awesome. Okay, can we dive into a little bit of that safety aspect? You talked about it being based on a trust system. Talk to us about what that would look like. We found somebody that we think might be a good candidate. Now what? Are we having a video call this person? Are we meeting them in person? Are we setting up a long-term plan? Do we pay them per month? Do we schedule pickups? How does it look for people to have this relationship with a donor?
It looks different person to person. So obviously, let's say if you're looking for donor milk, hopefully you have somebody in your community or your friend group, maybe that might be where you want to start, where say, hey, my friend has an oversupply and she told me that, I can get as much milk as I want to get. And then that way it's not necessarily a stranger. And this person's lifestyle, how they handle themselves, things like that. That might be where you want to start if you have, safety concerns, obviously. If you are doing research on like apps or Facebook groups, some people have like donor profiles where they're telling you, hey, I get lab work done every X amount of weeks. Hey, I donate to the hospital and they make you fill out this and have all this stuff taken. Here's my paperwork. You can see that I actually do this and I'm not trying to scam you. They also can just, if they're, let's say I have some clients who are vegans. So they're like, hey, I'm looking for another vegan mama. And I just want to make sure that, we're pretty much on the same kind of wavelength as it pertains to what type of milk they feel like they'd be offering to their child. Now, if they're looking for a kind of a staircase where they're just like, hey, I just need a stepping stone to get to where I'm trying to go, they may just say, hey, I can meet you at Target, or I can meet you at the fire station, a neutral ground. Or if you're comfortable enough, hey, come to my house, get as much as you want out of the freezer. Those types of relationships can be, like I said, they can be something that's where it's just, I only need this 1 or 2 times, or it can be, hey, every time you need milk, let me know. I fill this freezer up. It's no problem. Some people ask for payment as how many ounces I have. Hey, I have 100 ounces. I'd like at least $100. Somebody else may say, I'm charging $2 a bag, or whatever you're looking for. And other people may say, hey, I don't really want payment, but I would like for you to replace the bags so that I'm, feel like I'm getting something out of this, because at the end of the day, pumping is a lot of work. Other people may say, hey, I'll give you bags and I'll replace your pump parts. So it just depends on what you as the donor are looking for when you are making that agreement.
Cool. I love that. Okay, let's talk about a little bit more what other things we may be looking for in breast milk. I think some things are obvious. Maybe you do or don't care that they drink or, do drugs, dairy. What are some other things people might consider? Gluten, maybe, or soy, anything like that?
All of those things play into it if you have that, mama. So I usually ask, like, hey, are there any dietary restrictions? Like, I've had some clients who are Muslim, so obviously they don't eat pork. So they may say, hey, I want somebody who doesn't eat pork so that I can make sure that my baby is staying in alignment with our faith. Recently, this may be a little bit controversial. I have seen people who are looking for people that are or are not vaccinated from COVID. So it depends, if whether you are or you not, you might want somebody who is in line with what you have done for yourself. So those are definitely choices. Like I said, vegan or pescatarian or no dairy. So I've had, even that's another reason too, that somebody might choose donor milk, because the baby has been diagnosed with a dairy intolerance and they're waiting until they have all the dairy out of their system and they can't use the milk that they have previously pumped because their baby has a dairy intolerance. So now she's like, hey, I just need something to be a filler while I'm, letting this cycle out of my system. So that's another reason too, that somebody might choose donor milk also.
That's also a beautiful way to give your milk that you've pumped away. If your baby can't use it, give back to the community that is supporting you and giving to you. I think that's what, I think that's what kills me about these milk banks, because you're taking from our community for free. And then you're profiting off of it an exorbitant
it is very much goodwill. Like, I'm going to give you something for free, and then you are going to decide what it's worth and then sell it back to somebody else.
All milk banks are like that?
I'm not going to say all of them are like that, because some of them I do know will pay the moms a certain finder's fee or, however, because a lot of them have minimum requirements. So they'll say, hey, you have to donate 150 ounces of milk. So some of them may have that in there where they're saying, I'm going to give the mom this amount of money or this stipend or whatever. And some of them are just like, hey, this is strictly donation. Give me whatever you have and we'll take it and we'll pasteurize it, because that is not a cheap process, and we'll lab test it and we'll do all these things, but we're going to bottle it up and we're going to ship it out and sell it to these other places.
So is it weird that milk banks, or maybe just explain to us the science behind it, because I certainly am unaware of, why are we pasteurizing breast milk when it doesn't get pasteurized right out of the breast to our babies?
They're basically pasteurizing it because, from my knowledge, they do what's called milk pooling. So they'll get milk from me, they'll get milk from you, they'll get milk from somebody else, and they'll put it all in the container and then mix it together to kind of evenly distribute milk. And then they pasteurize it and heat seal it to like make sure nothing gets in it, I guess, in transport. But I don't really have all the answers on that, but they do pasteurize it. And I do know that they do milk pooling. So it's not just one person's milk you're getting.
Wow, that is so interesting. I bet a lot of people don't know that. I bet a lot of people don't know that. About being a donor recipient, but also I bet not a lot of people know how that donor milk bank actually works.
Yeah. When I had my first child, I was 21 years old. I had no idea about breastfeeding. And as soon as he was born, we didn't even breastfeed in the first hour, which I tell people, I know this has nothing to do with what I was getting ready to say, but in that first hour, it's important for them to breastfeed because they have that suck swallow reflex. And if you wait after that first hour, they're focusing on breathing, they're focusing on, their new environment. They may not have that suck swallow as intensively as they had fresh out of the womb, because that's all they're doing while they're in utero is sucking and swallowing. So that's why it's super important to breastfeed them in that first hour. But with my oldest one, they held him up as soon as he was born, showed him to me, and then whisked him out of the room. And I told my husband, I was like, go with him. I don't even know what my baby looks like. Like, go with him. He was gone for about 45 minutes. While he was gone, the nurse came back in and she was like, you're breastfeeding, right? And I said, yes. And she came back and brought me a hospital grade pump and hooked me up to the pump. And I thought that that's what I was supposed to be doing. So as soon as they brought him back, they're like, Mama, he's sucking his hands. He's hungry. Feed him. So I'm thinking, you know, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. They had me hooked up to the pump the whole time that I was in the hospital. So much so I had to send him to Walmart to get one of the little igloo coolers to put all of the little milk vials in because I'm just hooked up to the pump. So fast forward, I pretty much gave myself probably a Guinness World Record book oversupply. I used to pump a gallon of milk every day. And it was, you see, I don't have a whole lot of chest. It was miserable. I used to put him to sleep and I would wake up at like 2:00 in the morning and everything would be wet. The bed would be wet. I'm wet. He's wet. My husband's wet on the other side of the bed. Everything smells like milk because he's on this boob and this side is just shooting like a fountain. It was horrible. And I used to have to get up, take the sheets off the bed. We all had to take a shower and then, you know, put sheets back on the bed, get back in the bed and go back to sleep all in the middle of the night. But I had so much milk in my freezer. We had 2 freezers and they were full. And I didn't have any room for food at that point in my freezer. And my husband was like, you have to throw this away. And I was like, no, I'm not throwing this away. What's wrong with you? And he's like, girl, we don't have any room for anything.
We're not going to be able to eat.
He's like, you got to find something, somewhere else to put this. And I mentioned it to my pediatrician and the pediatrician was like, you can take it to the hospital will take it. And I'm like, okay. So I go to the hospital and I have like one of the big rolling coolers. And I'm like, hey, I have all this milk. Here you go. And then it was years later, somebody was like, you know, you could have sold that. And I was like, what? Do you know what I could have done with that much money when I was 21 and a college student with a newborn? So yeah, people don't realize that, you know, they can sell it, or they don't realize that basically the hospital is going to sell it to somebody else essentially, or you pretty much think, I know for me, I thought when I donated it, I thought that it was going to go right into some freezer or something. And then a NICU baby was going to get it. I didn't think about the pasteurization process. I didn't think about, you know, that the milk bank was going to charge them for the pasteurization process. And I just gave you a cooler of milk for free. So.
Man, that's a tough pill to swallow. It also is just so, I feel like I just got punched in the gut a little bit to think about a family stuck in the NICU and they have to worry about finances of how they're going to feed their baby from this donor milk. It's a little shitty that the hospitals don't just give you donor milk.
Now, the hospitals will give it to them if they are in the NICU. They get it while they're in the NICU.
Okay.
It is once they leave the hospital that they would have to start paying for the donor milk. Or like I said, here in Georgia, they passed the bill where they can go and I believe get it from the hospital for free or significantly reduced prices. But while they're in the hospital, they do have that donor milk for free. It's just once they leave the hospital. Okay, also, great. There are some people who, I forgot, there was another, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place.
No.
I have had people reach out to me about donor milk as well because their child is not even always a baby, but their child has like a G-tube and breast milk is the only thing that they're able to drink. Those people too, you know, need access to milk, and there's no way that they can pay $3.33 an ounce for milk either.
That is insane. Yeah. This is such a double-edged sword. I don't think I was expecting the emotions of this conversation. And on one hand, it's really awesome that this system exists in terms of its mission and what it's trying to accomplish, right? Connect people who have strong supplies and have extra milk to people who need it. But on the very other side of that coin, it's like, wow, there's a lot of like
gray area.
Well, profit. Just abuse and people taking advantage of other people and things being taken from our community and then not given back to our community, you know?
It's definitely why some people are more advocates for the peer-to-peer,
Got it.
because it is usually mama to mama.
Yeah.
It is somebody that's super grateful that you are able to step in and help them. And then somebody else that's super grateful to be able to help somebody. Like, I've even had clients who were like, I was on the receiving end of donor milk the first time, and here I am with the second baby, and now I have the oversupply. So I'm so happy to be able to help somebody the way that I needed help previously. Those situations tend to be more, I don't even know the word, but it makes more sense peer to peer. Now, some people will say, oh, well, you have to worry about if it's peer to peer, are they actually giving you breast milk? Because it's those people who can be greedy, and they may say, hey, this is 50% breast milk, 50% almond milk, or whatever, 50% formula, because somebody just really wanted more money and be able to sell it instead of actually having breast milk. So there are, of course, issues. There are things that could arise, but usually it is on a trust system, and I haven't seen any issues arise on my own capacity from moms sharing milk.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, great. So, kind of on that same line of things kind of, going bad, you mentioned scams earlier. I want to talk about some common scams that you see when people start to enter this world of donor milk. What are some things that they should be aware of in terms of purchasing donor milk or just creating this relationship?
I would say creating a relationship is probably the best place that you want to start, because if you can find that person who, anytime you need milk, that you can trust that they're going to be able to, provide it for you, that is the ideal situation. If you are somebody who's constantly having to look for new people, then you definitely need to just be aware of their circumstances, what's going on. There have been people that say, well, hey, this wasn't even breast milk at all, and she sold me this, and I was giving my baby this, and I took him to the doctor and found out that it was infamil or something like that. And the people are just, money hungry. So there are, of course, like I said, scams. And some people also are worried about it becoming like fetishized. There are people who reach out wanting donor milk because they're those people who, I don't even know what it's called, but have they want to be a baby, and they will reach out to them because they want breast milk. And some people are like, absolutely not, I'm not selling milk to you. Somebody else may, be okay with, their milk being used that way. And other people who purchased it are like bodybuilders. A lot of bodybuilders,
I've heard of that.
Yeah, a lot of them purchase breast milk also. So if you're able to get it from somebody who, I guess, sells milk or donates milk often, and they can have reviews or people saying, hey, I got milk from her, blah, blah, go with that person. Usually if it's donated versus sold, you can usually count on the person actually giving you what they're giving you, because they're not even trying to make a profit from it. And then I guess there are lab tests if you want to look into that too, to just verify. But I'm pretty sure that is pricey. But there are options. But I would definitely tell you to start with trying to either reach out to somebody who is in your friend group or in your family first. Secondly, try to find somebody that you can build a relationship with. And then thirdly, I would say utilize, like I said, Utterly has the capability for people to like leave reviews. So if a person is like, hey, I got 60 ounces from Sterling and it was exactly blah, 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 or hey, don't buy milk from this person because she gave me infamil in a bag. So it definitely makes sense if you're able to just kind of, hopefully, just hope that moms would do the right thing, but just be aware of that there could be scams.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh my goodness. I have loved this conversation. This has been fascinating. Okay, if anybody wanted to work with you, so you do work with donors and with donor milk, but you do a variety of other things. So tell us about the services that you have and how people can connect with you if they were interested in working with you.
Okay, so I do home visits. So if you're in the metro Atlanta area, if you're about a 40-minute drive away from Atlanta, I can come to you. I provide that service because I have 3 children and I know what it's like to have just had a baby and I'm still bleeding. And now I have to put clothes on me and put clothes on the baby, put you in the car and try to take you to an appointment. And it's a whole thing. So I come to my mamas because I see most of my clients for the first time between days 2 and 7. And I want you at home. I don't want you out coming to my office or anything like that. So I do home visits. But for the people who are out of my mile radius, I do virtual breastfeeding meetings as well. Those are 1 hour on Zoom. And I'm really good at supporting mamas virtually as well. I teach doulas how to support their breastfeeding clients so that when they refer their clients to me, we're giving the people the same information. It's not like, oh, my doula told me this, and now here you are telling me that everything my doula told me was wrong. So I teach doulas how to support their breastfed clients, and I have an educational breastfeeding coloring book for people to color and learn about breastfeeding in their own likeness. I'll say that. So when I first got into lactation, a lot of the literature and things were very much white breast and pink nipples. And I was like, how can I explain to people who don't have white breasts and pink nipples what this looks like? So I created the book so that they can color it in their own image so they can see themselves in breastfeeding literature. What else do I do?
Where can they get that? Where can they get your coloring book?
It's on Amazon. It's called Facts and Tips for Mother and Child.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's on Amazon. I think that's, actually, I have a walk. I have a breastfeeding walk. It is once a year. It takes up so much of my time, but it is during Black Breastfeeding Week. It is called the Golden Bowl Breastfeeding Walk. And I provide so much stuff to these new and expectant mamas. They come out, they can connect with local health and wellness vendors in the area. It is free. They can come out. This year, the theme is support is a verb. So they can come out and get like mini pamper sessions. That I'll have a toddler play area, an inflatable. We have some amazing companies that have donated a lot of stuff to be raffled off. So I have people that come up and they're like, I'm spending $300 on raffle tickets. I want to walk away with everything. And we just kind of bring awareness to breastfeeding. When I was a first-time breastfeeding mom, I did not have anybody that I could talk to that I felt like understood what was going on. So I pretty much created the community that I wish I would have had when I was starting out breastfeeding. Yeah. I think that's all I do.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Sterling, you are like such a wealth of knowledge. I had to stop myself multiple times in this conversation from like veering too far to the left or the right, okay, or like, doing a U-turn, like, oh, we got to go down this path. I'm so grateful that you joined me today. This has been a really awesome conversation, and I hope that it's something that will add to our listeners' toolbox. It doesn't mean donor milk is right for you, but certainly don't write it off before you explore that option if you get into a place where you need to make it in your feeding journey. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Truly. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. And look, if you got more questions, we can always do this again.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Okay, tell us before we leave, where can people find you on Instagram?
They can find me at Loyal Lactation. So that is LOYAL Lactation, LACTATION. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Threads. All of that is Loyal Lactation.
All the places, the places. Threads. Woo! Oh my goodness. All right,
I haven't completely figured that one out yet.
No, me neither. And I am, I'm so angry at myself for giving into the FOMO of, I wish I had never downloaded it. I don't even like it. And now I feel the social pressure to perform over on that app.
Yep. Same.
All right, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. It is always such a blast to get to hang with you. If you're listening on the podcast, head over to YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, hello, go see us on the podcast. Otherwise, head over to Instagram and follow us on Tranquility by Hee and the.birth.lounge. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. I'll see you next time on the Birth Lounge podcast. Until then, head over to Instagram and find us at Tranquility by Hihi and give us a follow. You can also check us out at thebirthlounge.com.